Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, August 16th. Kind of typical summer-like weather here in the Mid-Atlantic region as we end the work week. Warm, humid conditions, a mix of clouds and sun, and there will be some scattered showers and thunderstorms later today and tonight, and probably on each weekend day, just spotty showers and thunderstorms. Temperatures do creep up over the next few days, and by the time Sunday afternoon rolls around, it looks like highs in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor should be 90 to 95 degrees. That hot weather continues on Monday and Tuesday as well. Will tend to trend down some again by the middle part of next week and the latter part of next week. So all in all, rather typical for this time of the year. The tropics remain quiet right now, but there are reasons to believe that it'll become more active during the next couple of weeks as we progress through the month of August. This is a forecast map from NOAA for the next 5 days. Precipitation pattern for the next 5 days, quite similar to what we've seen in the overall pattern over the last several months, with basically the eastern two-thirds of the nation quite wet, dry this time of the year, not too unusual in the western part of the U.S. Some hints here perhaps of the monsoonal type rains starting to form. They form this time of the year as we progress through August into September, where you get a lot of afternoon showers and thunderstorms, especially at the higher elevations in the southwest U.S. A couple of areas of interest here. First of all, notice this area of heavy precipitation, heavy rainfall over the next 5 days. Basically, we have a frontal system that is stalled out in the southeastern U.S., and it kind of has its extension of the front all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. That will result in some heavy rainfall over the next 5 days. Gulf of Mexico is probably the area where tropical activity will first ramp up, perhaps in a week to 10 days or so. There may be low pressure forming along the stalled out frontal boundary zone towards the end of next week, going into the following weekend or so, and that could become a tropical storm. We'll have to monitor that again. We're talking a week to 10 days out. Spotty showers and thunderstorms for the next few days in the Mid-Atlantic region. A couple of heavier areas of precipitation here, and really there's some strong storms right in these parts of the middle of the country as we speak right now, so that contributes a lot to this 5-day total seen here from NOAA. Well, speaking of stalled out frontal systems, and indeed we have a stationary front cutting across southeastern Virginia all the way down to the Gulf region. This is the front where low pressure will form down across the Gulf of Mexico over the next few days, and really that kind of frontal boundary zone will exist over the next week to 10 days, and low pressure could ultimately form down in this part of the Gulf of Mexico at the end of next week or the following weekend. That could become a tropical storm. Many days away from that, but that's the type of scenario I'll be looking for next week as we go towards the end of next week into the following week. Watch out in the Gulf of Mexico. Meanwhile, the stationary front is indeed going to keep us somewhat unsettled here in the I-95 corridor region, with some spotty showers and thunderstorms today, tonight, probably both weekend days as well. Most of the time will be rain-free. Well, let's walk through the upper level forecast maps from last night's 6C GFS. Quite an interesting pattern setting up over the next couple of weeks here. This is as we begin the day on Friday from the 6C model run. Again, relatively seasonal conditions right now in the Mid-Atlantic region. No real large high pressure ridge aloft, no real large deep upper level low aloft here in the Mid-Atlantic region. There is one over the upper part of the Midwest. It's contributing to a lot of instability right now and some heavy showers and thunderstorms in that part of the nation. But as we progress through the upcoming few days, notice the oranges kind of starting to back into the northeast U.S. as we get into the weekend. We'll see this ridge aloft starting to intensify over the Mid-Atlantic region and the northeast U.S. over the next few days. And indeed, temperatures will creep up from today to tomorrow to Sunday. By the time Sunday afternoon rolls around, we'll be at 90 to 95 degrees most likely in much of the urban areas along the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Let's move ahead, and here we go into the day on Sunday. Still that upper level ridge starting to intensify here. And Sunday will be probably the most uncomfortable of the weekend days, and that heat and humidity will remain in place on Monday and Tuesday as well. But then let's progress into the next week time frame. This is Monday, still ridging here. And again, Monday and Tuesday remain hot in the I-95 corridor region from D.C. to New York. But then we start to see this upper level feature head towards southeastern Canada, and then there's reason to believe that high pressure will form over the Great Lakes by the end of next week, and that should push somewhat cooler air into the mid-Atlantic region, latter part of next week, perhaps going into the following weekend. Let's then move forward here as we go into the latter part of August here. Now we're at August 25th time frame. This is not this Sunday, but a week from Sunday. This is something we'll watch for as we progress through the month of August. High pressure ridging aloft this time of the year, moving into southeastern Canada, the northeast U.S., often leads to some tropical activity that basically slides underneath that upper level ridge, moves from the east to the west into the western Atlantic, perhaps ultimately into the Gulf of Mexico. So again, high pressure ridging, there is reason to believe that that will intensify over southeastern Canada, New England, not over the next 5 days, but probably the latter part of the month of August. This is a kind of a pattern that will become more conducive to tropical activity, especially moving towards the Bahamas, Florida, and Gulf of Mexico. Well, let's walk through the surface maps from last night's 6E GFS model run. Nothing going on right now to speak of in terms of rainfall. Again, there can be some spotty showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. This is the evening forecast map. GFS pointing out some rainfall here, but again, expect them to be quite spotty, the showers and thunderstorms. Certainly cannot rule them out, but the Phillies, for example, should get in their game tonight. It's hard to imagine they could top the game last night, but they play in South Philly tonight. Should be able to get the game off. There's also the Yankees in New York, Washington, down in D.C. Should be able to play those games. Cannot rule out a shower or thunderstorm, but nothing widespread or all that long lasting. Let's now move into Saturday morning here. And notice the 576 thickness line down here as we begin the weekend, but we'll see how that evolves. It tends to push north here. In other words, warming up in the lower part of the atmosphere, and temperatures should be a little bit higher tomorrow compared to this afternoon, and then even higher on Sunday compared to Saturday afternoon. And here we go, by Sunday afternoon, still some spotty showers and thunderstorms around, but that 576 thickness cutting right through the Mason-Dixon line, even to the north of there. Expect 90 degrees in Philly, maybe 93 in D.C. for highs on Sunday afternoon, maybe 89, 90 in New York City. That heat and humidity remain as we begin the new work week. This is now Monday afternoon, still 90 plus degrees along the I-95 corridor, a spotty shower or thunderstorm. And then as we progress through the middle and latter part of next week, we talked about high pressure building over the northern plains, headed towards the Great Lakes. And indeed, here's the setup for the latter part of next week now. Here we are now by next Friday morning. High pressure to the north. That should result in more comfortable conditions by the latter part of next week. And it's at this time that we'll start to really focus in on the western Gulf of Mexico. A little bit of low pressure area depicted a week from now over the western Gulf of Mexico, and that has a chance to develop into a tropical storm. Way ahead of the game right now, but that's where I'll be focused on next week, the Gulf of Mexico specifically, as tropical activity should indeed ramp up as we progress through the month of August. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.